Hey, welcome to the Cribbled Handyman. I'm not sure how many episodes this will take. Quite a while to talk about this subject. It's about why get into the HVAC industry. Um, the HVAC industry is a huge industry. And if you don't know what HVAC is, it stands for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. Um, and across companies generate over $150 billion in revenue in this industry, and it's expected to grow 6.1% through 2026. Um, it's a very that's the industry I was born into. My grandfather started a sheet metal shop in 1947. My father took over. Well, they became partners. They ended up taking over. I became partners. I became a part of the company as far as where I was kind of like a shareholder. I bought into at 26, and let me tell you, um, I didn't stay with the family business. Like I said, if you listen to other videos, I went bigger. I went to another large commercial company. We did residential and light commercial. Um, I was in the industry for almost 30 years, and you can make a very good living. Um, you can make anywhere down as minimal as if you have a little bit of training. You don't have to start with a company with any training. They will train you. I trained many men through my years with the family business, even when I went to a big company, um, teaching the men as well. And um, there's just so much training that is available, especially if you're going to be a service technician. Um, see, part of being in the HVAC is you're installing, you're repairing. You get into the installing side, repairing, maintaining, troubleshooting, of all the heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems out there for both the residential and commercial building. Um, I guess the easiest way I will be able to explain this. And like I said, this is going to be a multi-part series on if you're looking for a really amazing career, get into the HVAC industry. It'd be wise to start in the residential side, find a shop, find a company near you that does residential, maybe small commercial, and um, depending on some shops, I will kind of just give a breakdown on pretty much how all the shops I was with, whether it was a family business and the other bigger company that was larger than, where I came from. Because I kind of, uh, I came to a stalemate with learning anything more. We did big custom homes, homes 12, 15,000 square feet. That required multiple heating and air conditioning systems. Some homes had pools, where you're having to put in a special dehumidification system. I know there was one brand called the Desert Ear. We also put in these huge Bonanza units, say for these huge warehouses. They're 1,000,000 BTU, one direct burner to heat up huge warehouses instead of using multiple hanging units. But I think it's probably best if you want to get into the industry. Let's start out at the bottom. What to expect? The one thing is to be expected. You're going to start learning how to use multiple hand tools, multiple power tools, and say if we're going to go on a residential side, And our shop, which was my grandfather's shop, he built in Crestwood, Illinois. The company no longer exists. My father is deceased. My grandfather is deceased, and well, I'm disabled. But I left the company and went, onto a larger company. And sometimes you have to make those changes. Unfortunate. It's a big story. I don't want to get into it. One of the videos I touched briefly what happened, but you have to find that video where I touched it. And while you're watching this, hey, I would appreciate if you hit that subscribe button and like the video if you like what you're learning. And so, say you worked for my company, you would be hired. We had a full shop. We had a full fabrication shop, and we were based on light commercial. Our equipment we didn't have at our shop. We didn't have any power brakes. We didn't have any power shears. We didn't have a plasma cutter. But in a residential shop, I tell you, our shop was great. We had, the slitter, the foot shear. We had the lock formers, the Pittsburgh machines, the cleat machines. So when I talk about a cleat machine, it makes the S and drive cleats. And what an S and drive cleat is, the S cleat is like when you have ductwork and you're joining the two sections together. You have the S cleats on the top and the bottom. And to keep them together, you use a drive cleat. And they slip up through there. So I remember in high school, I was learning how to make S cleats, drive cleats, end caps, learning how to make elbows, 45s, called a fitting called a Goldberg. It was basically if you were going straight this way, say it was 12 by 8, it would turn and then 12 by 8 would go this way and then 90 the other direction. It was a great fitting that we would fabricate to go into the opposite direction. So say you're going north and then you got to, kick it east. And then you make a Goldberg and then you put a 90 on it. It gets, I don't want to get too involved in all that. But let's get back to all the different machines in our shop had. And then with the lock formers that would put together your edges, so you pound the ductwork together. And the nice thing with the lock former was you just pound the duct together and that was it. Now on a Pittsburgh seam, that was randomly used. We didn't really use that. You'd have to actually, when you put I have to get more precise with that. Look it up. Look up a Pittsburgh machine. It's a very strong seal. It's more airtight. It's a better connection, but typically all that ductwork is not pounded together in the field. You would never. You'd have to have an air hammer, and which is loud as heck, and that's why they always called us tin knockers because we're always banging tin and making a lot of noise. That's the nickname for a sheet metal worker was a tin knocker. So this is what to expect. Say you start with a company, depending on where you're at. I guess I'll just talk about ours. You'll be hired on and do a walkthrough of the shop. And if you don't know how to fabricate, we would show you how to fabricate simple materials, elbows, making ductwork. So you would be using Dremels and learning how to do layout and fittings. That takes more time, but you would be actually hands-on in fabricating your material. Like in residential, we fabbed all of our fittings. We fabbed all the end caps, yes, and drives. The only thing that we bought from the supply house, we liked all the main trunk lines, so they sell like, these are the standard sizes in residential. They sell 8x8 duct, 8-foot lengths. We did 8-footers. We never did 5-footers. I've seen a house like, man, that would take forever, but they must only have one guy on there. And that still made no sense because they have this tool. They call them duct hangers. And there's these little clamps that would wrap up on the wood joists, and they have a chain on it. And then you just position it properly. If you're by yourself, put the one end in, if you're by yourself, and then you're able to make a connection, tighten up the chain, and then you gotta end up putting up your hangers to support the duct. I know a lot of this stuff it may sound foreign to you because if you've never been in the industry. I think I've been trying to figure out how to get people in the trades. I'm going to talk about the trade that I did for 30 years. Yeah, through those 30 years, I still built homes. I was a contractor. I ended up having my own contracting business. I was multi everything through those years. So getting back, um, you will. So besides a shop, now not all companies have a shop. They buy everything from the supply house, and you have to even making your plenums for your furnace installations. We made our own plenums, and we actually insulated the plenums because of air conditioning. The plenums would sweat, and that would be bad if you get on the furnace. The furnace would rust out. So we would use like a half-inch duct liner and insulate, glue, and insulate. So there's so many tasks you could learn just on the fabrication side in a shop, um, to be ready for the field. So, and then you'll have the residential homes that being built. You got to do a layout, and you learn how to lay out the heating system. More or less. Figure out the BTUs and that's British thermal units. That's more or less how much heat does it take to heat up say a 8x8 room. And our shop, we didn't use the 4x10 boots for registers. We always used 2.25x12 because a lot of the custom homes we wanted to push that air and force that air up because it's skinnier and longer, and it would just give better airflow. So you start learning how to lay out homes. Like every room needs supplies and returns. Bedrooms, family rooms, you don't put returns like in bathrooms. You don't put a return air in kitchens, like in the kitchen. Sometimes the kitchen's adjacent with all these open concepts. You can't avoid doing that. Because a lot of these new homes, they don't have much walls for returns. We never did central returns. I just think those companies that are doing that, I'm gonna rag on you guys. That's just shoddy in my opinion. Every bedroom should have a return air. Every living room, family room, piano room, guest whatever. You have supply and return. So if it's a ranch, ranches are so easy to do, simple. Because of course, and then you're kind of working around with plumbers. They want to get in there first, and you could kind of, if it's a big custom home, you and the plumbers are typically working together to make sure you could get your HVAC system in there, so you could have a fully functioning, efficient system. And then you just start doing layout of a house. I'm probably getting maybe way ahead of what I should be talking about, like to why to get in the industry. I'm just kind of basing it. If you don't know, there's so much, then you have furnace installations. So what to expect if you got hired your first day, we're going out and it's like, okay, Bob, we got a house we're gonna rough. I'm the lead. I'm the guy that designs the systems for each house. Every house is different. We didn't get into the cookie cutter homes. We primarily did custom homes. There were builders that had say a few different models, but sometimes things would change and so forth, and the builders would stress to keep veering away from what I'm trying to talk about. A lot of times, like, I want the furnace at that end of the house because they want to finish the basement. We don't want the furnace in the way, this and that. I prefer furnaces in the middle of the house. Cost wise, it's more efficient. You get a better system. I guess I'll do another video about how to design all that, what I did, how we did it, and So what to expect? Let's get back to there. Let's get back on point, Eddie. So we're gonna get in the. So what we're gonna do? We're like, okay, we're gonna lay out a house. We're gonna get it cut up. So what do? It's like, okay, well, we're gonna need. We call them boots. Your supply boots, your return boots, and then you got different like boots for like running the stacks through the walls for the supply or return oval stacks. And so we're going to load up the truck with, we're going to have our tools. Sometimes we'll have to have the generator. We're going to have skill saws, sawzalls. We don't use chainsaws. I used chainsaw, I think, on one or two homes. I didn't like it. I hated it. The holes were sloppier, I felt, maybe because I wasn't great at it, never did it that way. We always use a skill saw. What we would do, we would buy a cheap Black& Decker skill saw, and we would actually cut the plate off on the right side of the blade. So literally, you could get within a half inch of the wall stud if you're cutting like in between the walls for your return boots. A lot of and you have to have those return boots to fit in there. They'd be like a 3 1/4 by 10, 96-inch round return boot. So you bring all your different boots you would need for the supplies and the returns. And then we actually fabbed our return air rings to go up there. Like I said, we only bought our ductwork. We would buy our flue pipe, obviously. Anything with like flashing, or angle flashing, if the angle stops at the floor, at the ceiling, when you're cutting all the plates out completely, you have to put angle flashing down. It's code anyhow. So that would be the first thing. I'd be walking through, and actually, how we would do it is, I would be upstairs. So this would be your first day. It's like, okay, Bob, I'm gonna pound some nails down, and we're gonna start like say doing supply, and we want to make sure we could get the supply to that room where I originally want to put a supply, say center of a window, and or if it's off center, depending on the joist layout. And you're going to be like, whether or not that stud space is open, because either the plumber's in there. We don't worry about the electricians at all in residential. The plumbers, as long as you got a good plumber, you have good communication. For the most part, through the years working with the same different companies, you're like, hey, on the next job, it'd be cool if you keep your pipe to the side so I can get my boots in there instead of running your pipe dead center of a cavity, which would blow up potential space for one of our runs. And when I say runs, is like your heat runs going upstairs. So you would be the guy learning like, hey, yeah, this stud's good. So if I was like write heat, and then you would just write, you would write H2. That would be the heat, supply for upstairs, or S2. And then, and if I'm looking for a return, I need a run and all that stuff. Then you would write R2, return. So you want to make sure you have the 2 on there because that's the second floor. Because when you start laying out returns and all that stuff for the first floor, you don't want to be cutting the top plates out to get everything ran through. I know carpenters hate our industry because there's been some. I never had really many issues with carpenters because we were very professional, and we just didn't go in the house and just like butcher it up on them. I mean, I would do sometimes, well, all the time, solid wood blocking, like on a return. This is, I guess, like again, I'm kind of veering off. It's just more or less like what you would expect working for my company. And then once we get all that laid out, we have all the heat runs and for all the bedrooms and all the returns and all the bedrooms upstairs. Well, then we start making it up. And then I started making up like little templates, for all the floor registers. Back in the old days, we would use baseboard. So that's why like that whole half-inch part, the blade, we could we use our skill saw and cut right against the wall with that. And then unfortunately cutting like towards the wall, you have to use a sawzall. Like I said, a chainsaw would overcut it. And I think that's, not I think, I know that's why they're using 4x10 boots for that. And then, yeah, we would put all the boots in. And yeah, sometimes then we would actually bring all of our stack material for running the supply runs through the wall to connect up, depending on the size of the house. Um, if it was like a large house, then we're just bringing some boots and so forth. We could load the truck up with some round pipe. We always use 10 footers of round pipe. And if there are 9-foot ceilings, they actually sold longer stacks for 9-foot ceilings. Otherwise, we're buying the 100-inch stacks versus I think the 110s or whatever. Like, no, I don't know. I can't remember. It's been a long time, folks. But so that's kind of the basis of that. So you guys are gonna, learning how to use saws and cut and start kind of doing layout. After you start doing a few homes, you start kind of getting better. And then what I would do is like I would kind of like walk the young guy through, showing him, telling him why. Okay, why does this room have 2 supplier leads versus 1? Depending on the size, how many BTUs are necessary? Is the wall north facing, east facing, west facing? Are there trees? All this has a big part of the layout and design of your heating and air conditioning system. Um, and then you would work until the end of the day. Then you go home. And then you go back out there, and then, obviously you have to have a space, a chase for running your flue. We were never the kind of company where, like, especially even in the attic, I see companies out there in the attic. Again, I'm veering off again because I'm criticizing other jobs I've seen where they just put a box up there, and all they do is run flex runs all over the place. It looks like a huge octopus up there. We would actually wrap our duct. And I did a couple of jobs where it was fiberglass duct. Oh my god, that fiberglass! You got a piece of that in your finger. Oh, that hurt like hell. It burnt. But we would run actually trunk lines in the attic. Wrap the duct before you put it up there and seal all the seams. All that stuff. And then we would put our big cowers in and then run it out to the bedrooms. Now, in the attics, I never really to put dampers up there because of the fact access to get up there, it was pretty much pointless. You would balance it with the register down below. On the first floor, every single run would have a damper. But we're trying to keep going off track. There's so much to talk about with this industry, but why getting into this industry? You could be an installer of the systems, which is really cool. Yes, depending on where you're at in the country, you deal with hot days, you deal with cold days, you deal with snow, you could deal with rain, but it kind of toughens you up a little bit. But for the most part, you have a lot of fun out there. You're learning a trade and you're learning a skill. Get with a good company, and you could make yourself you could make yourself $100,000 even working for a real big company. If you're just going to be a worker bee, you could easily make the 80,000 as you get better and better, and then before you know it, you're running your own jobs. But man, I stress to get into the industry as much as possible. You can't go wrong with doing HVAC. For your future, for your family. It'll pay your bills. If you don't take ownership and take pride in what you do, yeah, you'll find yourself maybe not being able to hold on to a job or not. But if you're an asset to that company, if you're good to us, we took care of you. You never drove your own vehicles, provided company trucks, and have your breaks, have your lunches. You just have a bunch of fun with your crew. You start meeting other trades, and you kind of start seeing how a house is put together. I would recommend, hopefully the company does, they have custom, like say a builder that does maybe 3 homes a year, 4 homes a year. Like I said, we never got into the builders that did 100 homes a year. We refused to do work for those kind of companies because all they want is cheap work. They just want a cheap price, and you run it and gun it. And it's a shoddy system. Our systems, we always did multiple trunk lines There was a separate trunk line for the upstairs. There was a separate trunk line for the first floor, and with balancing dampers and then dampers on the runouts to each individual runs. And also, like in bathrooms, we would run a 2 1/4 by 10 in a bathroom. Sometimes 2 1/4 by 12, depending on the size of the bathroom. But we never, like, I see a lot of companies, they want to run 4-inch pipe, 4-inch round. You know, we never did that. We ran 6-inch round for everything. We actually made our own collars, star collars into the duct. Our company was pretty awesome. My grandfather and my father perfected the systems, and they taught me. But getting with, like, say, a family business or a good homeboy business that, they're proud of, doing custom homes, you get into a big company that is just, they tell you all the materials already out there and you just run it and gun it. You may not, you won't make as much money with a company like that. But, and that's the install side, you know. And then, like I said, when we're doing anything custom, we need a custom elbow made, or we actually made all of our plenums. We made all of our return air drops. We made all of our own filter racks. Filter racks were external, and yeah, we did zone systems, humidifiers, electronic air cleaners, whatever the customer needed or wanted, whatever they wanted. We would do fireplace inserts. There's so much you can learn in the HVAC industry. I highly recommend getting into it. And because I only spoke of a little bit, just touch base of just the installation side. You have the service side, um, which is another huge end of it. You could work for a company where you're just a service technician. All you're doing is servicing equipment, fixing furnaces, fixing air conditioners. Yes, you have to have certifications, all your EPA stuff, your refrigeration card. I have mine. When they first did that, I remember when that came out, the EPA got involved and we had to get certified. And I want to say that was like in 88, 87, 86. I can't, 87, 88, 87. I can't remember. It's been many, many years. But there's more I want to talk about. Like I said, I'm going to leave it at this. And I'm going to try to keep it interesting on why to work and get in the HVAC. You learn how to do electrical. You learn how to do low voltage. You do your own gas piping. So you're out there. We had tripods. We're cutting gas pipe. And then you could be with, and then we also did furnace replacements, air conditioning replacements. We did copper roofs as far as like bay windows, so forth like that. Chimney flashing. There is so much to learn in the industry. It's a very, very rewarding business, and you learn a lot of skills, and then you meet a lot of great other contractors, and you start learning skills from them. If you want to, you don't have to. You can see how carpenters are framing homes, ask questions, and you start learning stuff in the construction world where you're not just, blinders on and just focusing on your own industry. You start focusing on what other, how other things are done. How layouts are done by carpenters. I used to ask carpenters questions all the time. Well, probably I didn't have a choice because my dad built homes, so I started out there framing homes too. You're doing sheet metal, then you're framing homes. Doing a cedar shake roof. I remember that roof was like, it was stupid square footage. It was like 65 squares, not square foot. It was 65 squares of cedar shake. Crazy. That was in 89. Did my first cedar shake roof. Never did one in my life. My old man's like, hey, this is how you do it, blah, blah, blah. And boom. Like I said, he was a master of all trades. I was very blessed to have a father with his knowledge. But I'm going to leave it on this note. And I'm going to get into this more. This is going to be episode series 1. But getting into the HVAC industry, you won't go wrong. It's a promising career. And when you get to that point of knowledge, you could actually own your own HVAC company in the future when you get to that point when you gain all this knowledge. So this is Eddie with the Crippled Handyman. Thanks for joining me. And we'll see you on episode 2 on uh, what else I'm going to keep talking about. There's a lot to talk about in this industry, and do some little bit of research. And I encourage all you guys and gals, if you want to get into a great field, um, and you can make a good living at it, get into HVAC. Highly encourage it. All right. Hey, if you like what you heard, support my channel. I really appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button. I hate even asking that, but help me get to 1,000 followers, and we'll see you on the next one.